নমস্কার, দেখছেন কলকাতা টিভি। আপনাদের সঙ্গে রয়েছে আমি মানসী। শুরু করছি সংবাদ সারাদিন। আর শুরুতেই সাংবাদিক বৈঠকে চোখ রাখবো। সেখানে সাংবাদিকদের মুখোমুখি রিজার্ভ ব্যাংকের গভর্নর শক্তিকান্ত দাস।
Clouded by the Omicron variant of the COVID-19. Moreover, given the slack in the economy and the ongoing catching up of activity, especially of private consumption, which is still below its pre-pandemic levels, continued policy support is warranted for a durable and broad-based recovery. Against this backdrop, the MPC decided to retain the prevailing repo rate at 4% and continue with the accommodative stance. I would now like to elaborate on our assessment of growth and inflation. I would like to first focus on growth. The NSO's release on 30th November confirmed that the recovery of Indian economy is gaining traction, with real GDP growth at 8.4% year-on-year for Q2 21-22 and subsequent to 20.1% in the preceding quarter, that is in Q1 of this year. All components of GDP registered year-on-year growth, with exports and imports strongly surpassing their pre-COVID levels. Incoming information indicates that consumption demand has been improving, with pent-up demand getting reinforced by the festive season demand. Rural demand is exhibiting resilience and farm employment is picking up with robust performance of agriculture and allied activities, supported by a strong start to Rabi sowing, continuing direct transfers under Prime Minister Kisan scheme, and extension of the free food grain under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana till March 22. Urban demand has also shown signs of strengthening, with spending on travel and tourism surging in the last few months. Other indicators like railway freight traffic, port cargo, GST receipts, toll collections, petroleum consumption and air passenger traffic have also picked up in October-November. The recent reductions in excise duty and state VAT on petrol and diesel should support consumption demand by increasing purchasing power. Government consumption is also picking up from August, providing support to aggregate demand. Enabling conditions for revival of investment activity are also falling into place. The production of capital goods remained above the pre-pandemic level for the third month in a row during September, while imports of capital goods increased by double digits during October for the 8th consecutive month. The central government's relaxation of additional market borrowings by states, equivalent to 0.5% of GSDP of the respective states, subject to, of course, certain capex-related milestones, and the decision to front-load tax devolution are likely to bolster capital outlays of the states. The government's focus on capex should also crowd in private investment, which has remained in a prolonged state of muted activity. Further, there has been significant deleveraging of corporate balance sheets amidst congenial monetary and financial conditions engendered by the Reserve Bank of India's liquidity measures. Overall, the recovery that had been interrupted by the second wave of the pandemic is gaining traction, but it is not yet strong enough to be self-sustaining and durable. This underscores the vital importance of continued policy support. Downside risks to outlook have risen with the emergence of Omicron and renewed surges of COVID-19 infections in a number of countries. Besides, notwithstanding some recent corrections, headwinds continue to be posed by elevated international energy and commodity prices, potential volatility in global financial markets due to a faster normalization of monetary policy in advanced economies, and prolonged global supply bottlenecks. Considering all these factors, the projection for real GDP growth is retained at 9.5% in 21-22, consisting of 6.6% in Q3 and 6% in Q4 of 21-22. Real GDP growth is projected at 17.2% for Q1 22-23 and at 7.8% for Q2 22-23. I would now like to turn to inflation. Headline CPI inflation ticked up in October to 4.5% from 4.3% in September, after falling sharply between June and September. This uptick mainly reflected a spike in vegetable prices due to unseasonal rains in some parts of the country. Hardening international energy prices have kept domestic and kerosene prices elevated for nearly 3 quarters, edging up fuel inflation to 14.3% in October. The persistence of high core inflation, that is CPI inflation excluding food and fuel, since June 2020 is an area of policy concern in view of input cost pressures that could rapidly be transmitted to retail inflation as demand strengthens. In this context, the reduction of excise duty and VAT on petrol and diesel will bring about a durable reduction in inflation by way of direct effects as well as indirect effects operating through fuel and transportation costs. The inflation trajectory is therefore likely to be in line with our earlier projections, and price pressures may persist in the immediate term. Vegetable prices are expected to see a seasonal correction with winter arrivals in view of bright prospects for the Rabi crop. Supply side interventions by the government have limited the fallout of continuing high international edible oil prices on domestic prices. I'm talking about edible prices. The measures taken by government have actually sort of limited the impact of rising international prices on our domestic prices. Though crude oil prices have seen some correction in the recent period, a durable containment of price pressures would hinge on strong global supply responses to match the pickup in demand as pandemic restrictions ease. Cost push pressures continue to impinge on core inflation, though their pass-through may remain muted due to slack in the economy. Over the rest of the year, inflation prints are likely to be somewhat higher as base effects turn adverse. However, it is expected that headline inflation will peak in Q4 of this current financial year, that is 21-22, and soften thereafter. Taking into consideration all these factors, CPI inflation is projected at 5.3% for 2021-22, and this consists of 5.1% in Q3 and 5.7% in Q4 of 21-22, with risks broadly balanced. CPI inflation is then expected to ease to 5% in Q1 22-23 and stay at 5% in Q2 of 22-23. Our monetary policy stance is primarily attuned to evolving domestic inflation and growth dynamics. Yet, imminent shifts in monetary policy settings by systemically important global central banks are bringing about fresh challenges for domestic macro-financial stability in the form of spillovers. In such a scenario, domestic macro fundamentals need to be resilient with appropriate policy stances and actions, and of course strong buffers. In this context, a well-entrenched nominal anchor provided by flexible inflation targeting framework has imparted credibility and flexibility to monetary policy to effectively address growth concerns during the pandemic. In the current situation, it is important to keep inflation aligned with the target while focusing on a robust growth recovery. Simultaneously, the Reserve Bank remains cognizant of the need to ensure that financial conditions are rebalanced in a systematic, calibrated, and well-telegraphed manner while preventing build-up of financial stability risks. Price stability remains the cardinal principle of monetary policy as it fosters growth and stability. Our motto is to ensure a soft landing that is well timed. Let me now turn our attention to liquidity and financial market conditions. The global context is evolving rapidly. Appearance of the Omicron variant has added to the complexity of the situation, even as several economies are still battling the virus while others continue to deal with the lingering scars of COVID-19. As economies reopened, the spurt in catch-up demand has met with choked supply chains, shortages of key inputs, and tightening labor markets. Combined with high energy and commodity prices, this has ignited long dormant inflation in a number of countries even before output has returned to pre-pandemic levels. Several central banks in both advanced and emerging market economies have begun unwinding from crisis time policies as warranted by their own growth inflation dynamics. Now, with fears of further restrictions on travel and activity, there is considerable uncertainty at this moment on how the growth inflation dynamics will pan out in the immediate months. The financial conditions are turning increasingly volatile as a consequence. The Reserve Bank has maintained ample surplus liquidity in the banking system to nurture the nascent growth impulses and support a durable economic recovery. This has facilitated swifter and more complete monetary policy transmission and the orderly conduct of the market borrowing program of the government. The Reserve Bank will continue to manage liquidity in a manner that is conducive to entrenching the recovery and fostering macroeconomic and financial stability. In our endeavor to restore the revised liquidity management framework instituted in February 2020, the Reserve Bank has been rebalancing liquidity surplus by shifting it out of the fixed rate overnight reverse repo. I repeat, the Reserve Bank has been rebalancing the liquidity surplus by shifting it out of the fixed rate overnight reverse repo window into the variable rate reverse repo auctions, or what I call the VRRR auctions of longer maturity. The objective is to re-establish the 14-day VRRR auction as the main liquidity management operation. This rebalancing followed a pre-announced glide path whereby VRRR auction amount was progressively enhanced to rupees 6 lakh crore by December 3rd this year. In response to this increase, overnight collateralized money market rates have mildly firmed up in recent times. By and large, the rebalancing of liquidity has proceeded in a timely and non-disruptive manner as planned. It is also fulfilling its objective of strengthening the Reserve Bank's control over the liquidity overhang, which in turn reinforces the ability of the Reserve Bank to normalize liquidity conditions when warranted. The Reserve Bank will continue to rebalance liquidity conditions in a non-disruptive manner while maintaining adequate liquidity to meet the needs of the productive sectors of the economy. Funds availed under the targeted long-term repo operations, that is TLTRO 1.0 and 2.0, which were announced on 27th March and 17th April 2020. It may be noted that banks have already prepaid rupees 37,348 crore in November 2020, which constituted about 1/3 of 1,12,900 crore availed under the scheme. The on-tap liquidity windows of rupees 50,000 crore for ramping of COVID-related healthcare infrastructure and services, and the liquidity window of rupees 15,000 crore for certain contact-intensive sectors will continue till their terminal date, that is March 31st, 2022. Further, given that the usage of MSF window has been rare due to surplus liquidity conditions, we propose to return to the normal dispensation under the MSF. Consequently, banks will be able to dip up to 2% of net demand and time liabilities, that is 2% of their NDTL, instead of 3% for overnight borrowing under the MSF from 1st January 2022. This dispensation, which was provided at the beginning of the pandemic, had boosted market confidence at a very crucial time, and it was, if you recall, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, and such measures did bring about a lot of confidence. It gave a lot of confidence to the market, in conjunction with the several measures which were announced by the Reserve Bank at that time and also in the subsequent months thereafter. Let me reiterate that we remain committed to our stance in support of our overarching priority at this juncture to broaden the growth impulses while preserving monetary and financial stability. We also continue to encourage adequate flow of credit. We will also continue to encourage adequate flow of credit to all productive sectors of the economy. Now, I would like to proceed and make a few announcements, which has been the pattern, if you recall, in the previous MPC meetings, or in my MPC statements. And the measures, additional measures which I am announcing are as follows. The first measure relates to infusion of capital in overseas branches and subsidiaries of banks and retention, repatriation, transfer of profits by these entities. At present, banks incorporated in India can infuse capital in their overseas branches and subsidiaries, retain profits in these centers, and repatriate and transfer profits therefrom with prior approval of the Reserve Bank of India. With a view to providing operational flexibility to the banks, it has been decided that banks need not seek prior approval of the RBI if they meet the regulatory capital requirements. The next measure relates to putting in place a discussion paper on review of prudential norms for investment portfolio of banks. The extent prudential